Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to PACT's lunchtime talk and adoption. And today we're talking about siblings and adopting siblings. You may know that last Saturday was National Siblings Day, and today we're joined by two of our adopters, Mark and Claire, who adopted siblings. Just to give you some idea of the number of children who are waiting for adoption, currently we've got just over 2,000 children in England waiting for adoption. And of those, 44% are in sibling groups. So welcome, Mark and Claire. Thanks for joining us today. And yes, so I just want to put some questions to you about your family so we can just get an idea of what it's like for you taking on a sibling group of 3 and 2. Yeah, so we're excited to hear your story and thanks for joining us. So if I could ask you first, Mark, can you just tell us a bit about the makeup of your family and how old your children were when they came home?
Oh, hi there, Mark here. So we adopted this over 5 years ago now, a boy and a girl. They were aged 4 and 5 at the time.
Right. And Claire, what's the your family makeup and how old were your children when they came home?
Yeah, so myself and my husband Harry, we adopted 3 children, 3 siblings. Similar time to Mark, just over 5 years ago, and at the time the children were 9 months, just 2 and just 3 years old.
Wow. Okay, so goodness, you've had your hands full. Okay, so Mark, what led you into adoption?
That's a good question. So we are a male couple, and I think at the time we had lots of conversations about having children. We went to different events, quite often seeing PACT there with kind of their warm and friendly smiles, and we just felt really kind of comfortable with PACT and found out more information about adoption through them. And I think also we probably wanted to give a forever home to children that have had pretty much a rough start to life, and otherwise perhaps wouldn't have had a home. So I think that's kind of led our conversations and process into adoption.
Wonderful. Okay, how about you, Claire?
Yeah, ours was an infertility issue, so many years of IVF treatment and obviously failures with that, and then we still very much wanted to be parents, and adoption really was, you know, the process moving on from that to follow for us. And yeah, and like Mark said, you know, sort of look around and see you know, who you might want to adopt with, and we felt very comfortable with PACT and all the information. So yeah, there we are.
Yeah, wonderful. So, and Claire, so how did you find the process of adoption?
It's rightly so. I think you have to be clear. It's really intrusive, in terms of gauging you know, if you're in a relationship, your family setup, and whatever it is. I think, you know, people could be nervous about say skeletons in your closet or your family makeup or relationships, but you know, it has to be an intrusive process given what children have gone through and the fact that they need to be placed with a secure home. That said, it was a very kind of cathartic process, you know, for us, having gone through all the infertility stuff and questioning your desires still to be parents. It was really quite nice, and also knowing what your friends and family get to say about you a little bit towards this, and how everyone wants to support you. It was actually, whilst you want stuff to happen, I think, quickly, and you think, oh, you know, we've made this decision, let's do it. Stuff does happen quickly in the right time, if that makes some sort of sense for everybody. You know, you have to follow all the right processes, and there are little hiccups and little delays along the way, but ultimately when your children are placed with you, it all kind of pales into insignificance, really. So yeah, it was an interesting process. Let's say. Yeah.
Okay, and how did you find it, Mark?
Yeah, similar to Claire, I think it is quite intrusive, but I really enjoyed it. I think, you know, even from the information evening, having another doctor there to kind of inspire you, having the kind of one-to-one sessions with your social worker, then come into your house. I mean, it is quite intrusive, but I quite enjoyed the process of that. I think we found out a lot about ourselves and our partners and your upbringing and your childhood, and then that kind of connection with then my parents and my family. The training was superb, meeting other perspective adopters like Claire. I think that was really key, actually, that you've got a really good understanding of maybe the background where your children would be coming from. So what trauma have they been through? What attachment difficulties may they have? And I think that was really key. But again, you've got a social worker holding your hand pretty much throughout the process, which again, you know, is really valuable.
Wonderful. Okay, so Claire, so you must have had a picture in your head of your family before you started the process. I mean, what was that like, and how did that change for you?
Yeah, before you make the decision to become parents, we thought siblings. Then we went through obviously with the IVF process, and it gets to the point where you think, I don't care, just one. But then with the adoption, you get a chance to readdress what your ideas and thoughts were. My husband's one of 3, I'm one of 2. We didn't want to go through the process multiple times, but knew that we wanted multiple children. So really, siblings was a really easy decision to come to. Like Mark said on the information evening, we actually had the pleasure of meeting a couple who adopted 3 children, really similar ages. In fact, to ours when we adopted, and it is really inspiring, and it makes you think, well, we can do that. You don't, I think, realize the number, like you said, given the figures beforehand, the number of siblings that are in care and need a home. And when you start understanding that, and actually with your training and the benefits of positive relationships with siblings, and also giving children that continuation in their life of staying as a sibling group is really so important. So actually it just became such an easy decision to go forward with siblings.
And how about you, Mark? What pictures did you have in your head of your family before you started the process? That's what it would look like.
I think for us it was pretty similar, actually. I think a bit like Claire, I think we probably wanted more than one child, and you know, going through that process again, and you know, why not go for a sibling group? And I think we were probably quite open, to be honest. Although I do remember in the training that they get you to make models of your children potentially, and actually our children are quite so you know, we did want a boy and a girl of a kind of similar age, and that's what we kind of got. But again, going through that process, looking at the profiles coming through, we were quite open-minded to different groups during that time.
Okay. All right then. And so, Claire, how did you find the linking and matching process once you because you said kind of through the process you decided on siblings, and then how did you actually find the linking and matching process?
Interesting. So once we were sort of going through being shown different profiles and actually sort of coming to those more nitty-gritty decisions about sort of digging in and choosing which children you wanted to look further into their profiles, and then thinking, right, okay, these are going to be the ones. It's exciting but scary, because you may be waiting for something to not go to plan and other things, but actually I think that's because we knew we loved our babies, and from the moment we saw their profile that we knew they had to be our children. And this is where I try not to cry, because I'm a bit of a cry, but it does get really exciting, you know, chatting chatting with their social workers, sort of getting all that further information, and getting the sort of the thumbs up to go ahead, it's really, really exciting. Actually, it's the good, I say the good part, it's all good, but you kind of feel like you're starting to really make progress at that point.
And Mark, how did you find the linking them out to the process with your children?
Yeah, so similar really. So really exciting, but I think it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster as well, that you're looking at different profiles, you're sent different profiles, you pay an interest or ask for information, you're waiting for that information to come back again. We actually were linked really quickly. We were on our final training course. I remember getting the emails through, what do you think of this sibling group? We're like, yes, definitely. And then I remember at the time during the break, we were looking at their kind of promotional video and learning a bit of information about them. And, every point was saying, yes, let's find out more. Our PACT social worker was absolutely amazing. And she came to the house to give us information. We could ask questions, and then you kind of go to the local authority visits and things. Our house has never been so cleaner, having so many social workers come to us. But yeah, I think it was a really positive, exciting process for us. Okay,
and so your children are slightly older, Mark. How did they respond differently to being adopted?
Yeah, they did actually. I think with our son, so he was slightly younger, experienced less trauma with the birth family. He was quite happy coming to us. They previously shared a bedroom before, and we were asked by the social worker to have separate bedrooms, which we did. And he just fitted in really quite easily to our kind of family network, very comfortable with us. He struggled more at school, whereas our daughter didn't. But yeah, our daughter, struggle's not the right word. It took a bit longer for her to feel more comfortable with us. Again, she was a bit older, experienced that trauma for longer, and that attachment, that she was actually looking after her brother within the birth family. So that continued into our home, and was something that we just had to manage with the support from PACT and therapeutic services. But eventually, she got there. She was more comfortable in her room. So they did respond quite differently. But then things like social and school, she was amazing. She was going in there, making friends and making really good progress, whereas he was a bit more behind in that sense. So yeah, they were quite different.
How about you, Claire?
Yeah, it's really interesting and not uncommon, obviously, what Mark's saying about generally the older sibling taking on the caring role and sort of almost questioning your ability to parent them and their sibling. And so there was a lot of reminding of, in the nicest way, who's in charge, who the grown-ups are, stuff like there's food available, there's always this, that and the other. So a lot of reminding and reassurance. But I think for us, the youngest was still a baby, and so she was fairly straightforward in that sense. The 2-year-old, he was raised pre-verbal, so a lot of confusion for him, a lot of awareness of change in his life. He was coming up to 3 years old, but didn't quite have the verbal skills to communicate exactly how he was feeling. So it was a lot of reassurance from our part. And then with the eldest, even though she was only just 3, she was very wise for her years, very aware of what was going on. Some regression in terms of tricky behaviours, but the main thing that she wanted, and this is when we had fantastic foster carers, but when we were during the transition phase, she just wanted to be cradled and held like a baby, and she just said, "Can I get into your bed at night, mummy?" And she just wanted to know that she could do those things, because rightly so, there's rules that the foster carers have to follow. So she was a big wanderer at night through previous neglect issues, but was always questioning and checking, are people here, is it okay? And pretty much I'd say 6 to 10 weeks she just stopped. She just stayed in her bed, and that was it. She knew what was what. She knew, okay, you know, I'm safe here and I'm okay. And if she did get into bed in that time, she'd just wriggle and then go back into her bed anyway. So but they all go at different rates, I think, and you adjust at different rates yourselves as if you're a couple. But I think looking back, I think it was kind of, I would say naive. That's not maybe the right thing to do. I think, you know, it's going to be a whirlwind taking on a sibling group. And it's a bit of a, you know, it's a bit crazy. But you get through it and you settle, and you all find your groove fairly. You know, you get there and you sort of look back every few weeks or few months, or you hit first anniversaries and bits, and you're like, wow, we're doing this. This is all right. Everyone's cool. So yeah.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you. So Mark, what's family like? What's family life like, parenting your family, your children now? What's it like?
Challenging. Well, I think you know, perhaps with any siblings, you know, you've got the arguments, you've got a slight rivalry there, and I think particularly with children that have been adopted and siblings, there's the element of competing for your love, that they don't feel that they are enough, you know, for that, and it's kind of sharing your time and your love between both your children. And slightly teaming up on you, which has been a bit interesting as well. But saying that, you know, you've almost got an instant family there, and I think, you know, their bond is so strong. And you know, even now they are quiet at the minute. You know, they're Easter holidays. You know, you're a bit limited on who you can see. The weather's not so great at the minute. You know, and they're playing together, and I think that's just really lovely that we've had lots of, you know, family days out, holidays together, and they've got each other. You know, it's just a really nice. You know, they're similar ages, but they seem to have similar things in common, and you know, a lot of the time they're just going to get on. So bearing in mind the challenges, but it's just really lovely.
How would you describe your family life, Claire?
Chaotic, crazy, but just brilliant. I mean, like Mike said, goodness me, global pandemic, and thank goodness they've got mates to play with. So if anything, I think they've kind of, as much as they've sort of got under each other's skin a little bit, they really loved having each other. There's only 2.5 years from top to bottom, so they are very close in age and likes and stuff like that. So it's useful, whilst it can cause upset over some little things, that they're generally very good with that. It's really good. I mean, I suppose just to give some other context to people, in case they come across it in their journey, are actually part of a larger sibling group. So there have been children that are younger, they've got younger siblings and older siblings, and we still have contact with them. So I'm just sort of, again, just trying to give people a little bit of information if they come across this on their journeys and they think, oh, how would we deal with that? Don't be frightened of it. It's absolutely fine. And so they know everything and everyone, but we are our family of 5, and they see themselves in their own standing within our household as well. So, you know, oldest and youngest and stuff like that. So but yeah, no, it's tiring, but that's parenting, whether you've got 1, 2, 3, or I don't know, see up to 22, the other lady. But yeah, it's brilliant.
Oh, wonderful. Mark, so how did you prepare your extended family for the arrival of your children?
Yeah, so I think PACT played quite a key role within that. So some of them are references, like my parents, so they had that initial contact with our social worker. PACT run a friends and family course, which they went on, which I think that was really valuable. Because actually parenting adopted children is a very special type of parenting. And it's just putting that understanding across to those that be around them. And I think, yeah, just giving that different understanding of our children, and we're probably going to parent things slightly different to perhaps how you were parented and traditional parenting. Yeah, very much staggered. So obviously it's something everyone's really excited, they want to come round, but actually we need to stagger that and make it achievable for our children to be able to manage them visits. So it was kind of drip feeding, apart from my sister, who was that kind of female influence. So she was the initial kind of family member who had that initial contact with them for longer periods, and then my parents, and then our other siblings started to see them. So short visits, making them successful, and then kind of building them up over time, really.
And Claire, how did you prepare your extended family?
Mark, to be honest, Mark's covered it all from the PACT side of thing. So yeah, and now we live next door to my mum and dad. So there's no getting away from us all. But yeah, no, exactly what Mark said. It's just understanding the slight challenges and differences that you will potentially face at some point and on the other. Yeah.
Okay. So what's your children's relationship look like now, would you say, Claire?
With each other?
Yes, yeah.
Really strong, really strong. They are definitely a trio not to be messed with, which is fantastic though, because ours were a split placement, because they weren't sure if they would be able to place 3 children together, and so our son went from being the youngest in his foster care to being the middle child. So there was some resentment to his baby sister, and so sort of dealing with all those problems as they sort of grow up and form into each other's as the baby kind of grew up and then became more interesting to them. But now they're really tight. Yes, they fight, of course they fight, but that's also good, because they make up, they stick up for each other. They know, like I got to before, they know their history. They know exactly where they've come from. They know who's who. They know what they can talk about it, and then the next thing it's what's on the TV. It's not a drama. It's not a big deal unless it needs to be explored further with them. But no, they're and it's not sound cheap, but they know they're lucky to be together as well. They know, and they know that they've got a family that have kept as much of a family together as possible. And they and it sounds, you think, oh, they're 6, 7 and 8, how can they have that kind of understanding? But that's this sort of difference of thinking that adopted children might have about their security in life, and they know they're fortunate to be in a good position. So, but yeah, that's.
Thank you. And Mark, so what's your children's relationships like with each other?
Yes, so really, really strong. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So our daughter's been going out for the day or see friends and family, and we're like, okay, to our son, let's have a boys' day in, or we're going to do this together. And next minute I see he's on the phone to his sister. It's just like they've got such a relationship that he's like, oh, I'm doing this, I want to share that with her. Or throughout lockdown, they've got their own bedrooms, but they call them flats. So they do like little sleepovers in each other's flats. It's pretty lovely. They've got that lovely connection between them, which you can see throughout. So yeah, really strong relationship, and a bit like Claire was saying with you know, don't mess with them. I think definitely wouldn't want to mess with them, so because they've got a really lovely connection, and certainly our son's sister, our daughter, will really stand up for him and protect him. So really lovely relationship.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. And Mark, final question. What would you say to anybody who was considering adopting siblings?
Don't do it. No, don't. Absolutely do it. I think it's that kind of, you've got that instant family, you've got two children, potentially, you know, they talk from our experience, they've got that lovely bond together, and you kind of start to, you know, they hardly did anything really before they came to us. It was very limited, their experiences, and for us to be able to go on holiday for the first time and go out and do theme parks with them, and you know, in different things at school, it's just really lovely. And I think it's just extending that with them, and you know, they just care about each other so much. You know, of course they have their own little dramas that go on, and their arguments, but you know, that's all part of life, and that's all quite healthy. So absolutely do it. Absolutely do it.
Thank you. Claire, what would you say to Emily?
Do it completely. It's I think it just sort of listening to Mark talking, understanding you know, what's gone on with our family. There are so many positives. You know, as long as the children are happy together, they will be happy with you together, and they will flourish, and it just gives, you know, they'll be their longest mates, you know, from their childhood to their adulthood. You know, I'm not going to be there when they're 70 something, maybe, you know, but their siblings are, and to have, you know, that constant in your life is very special. So so do it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, both of you, for giving up your time today to share your experience. We really appreciate it. Sounds like you're doing an amazing job. Thank you. So thank you for joining us today. And if anybody wants to find out more, there's lots of information on our website. PACT, you can scan codes up there. It's pactcharity.org, or you can call our inquiries team. And also on the website, there's a list of our virtual information events that you can sign up to and find out more. So thank you both of you for joining us again, and thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.